Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This is the broadcast for August the 11th in the year of our Lord, 2025. This is our one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and to do so on your radio in the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed, the checks and balances brilliantly put in place by the founding fathers, one of the peaceful, restorative solutions we have at our fingertips as we promote and dedicate ourselves, at least when it comes to the country, to the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America. As you know, we reject revolution. Unless it's a Jesus revolution, then we're in, because we follow the Prince of Peace. God, family, and country is the key, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you right now, everybody else can try to build a better mousetrap to your door. They can write a new book. They can put a new plan in place, but none of it compares to simply returning to the supreme law of our land. It ought to be the political religion of our nation, by the way. Welcome to the show. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. First, of course, Dr. Scott Bradley's in the house. Welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and are ready to hit the ground running today, this week, this whole new week. Fresh.
Yeah, we got a whole lot going on, that's for sure. We also have a doctor with us. His name is Len Ber. He's a medical doctor, and he runs a website called targetedjustice.com. Let's learn about him, then we'll get into the topic at hand. Welcome, Dr. Len.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about you first so we can kind of understand who you are and give us a thumbnail of who you are first, will you?
Yes, I was born in the USSR and was educated as a medical doctor and practiced medicine, specialized in endocrinology, was doing teaching, research, and in the early 90s, I moved to the United States to work for a pharmaceutical company, and then I was faced with a dilemma whether I want to go into practice or continue my corporate career. And I chose the latter, and I had 30 years plus of career in science and scientific affairs, executive position, and regulatory affairs. I was doing great all up until 2019 when my attacks started, which I later found out were anomalous health incidents, as the government tells us to use this terminology, or known as Havana Syndrome to most of us. And so I received diagnosis at the University of Miami at the clinic of Dr. Hoffer, who originally, he was the first American doctor to examine the Cuban diplomats. And there was a group of 25 rather homogeneous cases, and he built diagnostic criteria. So he was the first doctor to know how to distinguish, how to diagnose and differentiate it from other condition. And this is the doctor, and he published it in 2018. And in 2020, right after the pandemic, in quotation marks, it was all open. I went to Miami, spent a whole day doing testing, and then Dr. Hoffer told me, "Yeah, that's what you have."
All right,
later,
so let's back up for a second so that I'm clear on this. So you had kind of a decision whether you're going to be a medical doctor in the field working with patients, or whether you're going to kind of stay in the research realm. You stayed in the research realm. You were doing great, but then you got attacked. Why would you be attacked, though? Were you doing something that somebody might? In other words, why would that happen?
Yeah, this is the hardest question to answer for anybody who is victimized by this technology. You don't know who's attacking you. You don't know why. Asking why you're. It's like asking yourself, did you do anything wrong? Well, I didn't do anything wrong. I was not a whistleblower. My area of research is completely. There's nothing confidential or state government secret to it. And I really, my best speculation at this point is that I am one of the non-consensual subject in the experimentation that's been happening for years. I don't know how I was chosen, perhaps by genetic.
But let's be clear. There's got to be a reason. We just don't know what it is yet. Is kind of the issue. Now let's talk a little bit about this so-called Havana Syndrome, because I think people hear about it and they're kind of like, what? That's super weird. How can that be? Etc. Really, what you're talking about is you hear what?
Well, I hear sounds and I feel vibration. So in the definition of the core characteristic of Havana Syndrome, it's either or, either sound, because not everybody heard the sound, but most of them had a balance issue, which appears suddenly, and this sensation called buffeting. It's a sensation of vibration. Your head vibrates, your whole body vibrates, and you just kind of in the claws of this invisible energy that vibrates you. I later understood what is happening because both National Academy of Sciences and the scientific panel of the intelligence community, they both converged on this mechanism that this is happening because your brain is exposed to pulsating energy in the radio frequency range, most likely in the microwave range, and it's directed at your head, and it pulsates, and these pulses are high energy, and so your brain gets synchronized to these pulses. It's also called brain entrainment, and this produces and explains the symptoms of Havana Syndrome, which a lot of people think are generic, but the combination of how it occurs suddenly, vibrating pressure, sound, vestibular loss of equilibrium, and cognitive meltdown, they all happening together, and that's unique. There's no other medical condition, no in the history of neurological disease, there hasn't been described anything like this. And so both the National Academy of Science and the scientific panel of the intelligence community, they both agreed this is unique, and this is the most plausible mechanism that explains it. Directed pulsed radio frequency energy.
Is it low frequencies?
We don't know the exact frequency, but I was explained by physicists that it's not the frequency of the wave, it's the frequency of the pulses. And in every document, there's no, if it's a government document, the methods of detections are classified. So they don't want us to know how to detect the actual energy associated with these attacks.
All right. So there's so many problems that you just brought up, I don't even know where to start, except let's be clear. This Havana Syndrome is kind of a colloquial term, if you will, that first entered public conversation after a Belgian physicist, I don't even know how to say this guy's name, Ludwig
de Bracquelier.
De Bracquelier,
Yeah.
coined the term on his website, I guess it's inteltoday.org, basically in 2017. So this isn't very old, but following much publicized energy attacks on the personnel of the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba. So we don't know that the Cubans are responsible for it. That's just first where we detected it, right?
Right. There's history of these attacks referring to earlier periods, but this is the first time we had a cohesive group. When you say Havana Syndrome, it's the Havana cohort of the Havana Syndrome that allowed us to diagnose this condition. And there were cases all over the world, Austria, Germany, Czechoslovakia, like basically everywhere. China, Taiwan, things like that.
Now, since then, we've kind of learned that this thing tracks back to the 50s. This is where I want to bring Dr. Scott Bradley in. This thing's been going on for a long time, but it's just been kind of I don't know what you want to call it, classified, codified, squared away, focused on, whatever, recently. But this thing goes back to the 50s, Dr. Bradley.
Are you just talking to me because I'm old? No,
I just think you might have a little bit of historical setup for us about some of this stuff,
All of this electronic...
Go ahead and skip our break. Dr. Bradley, continue.
This electronic stuff that's been going on, and it has been, it's ramped up as we've gotten more electromagnetic energy injected into the atmosphere, if you will. This Havana Syndrome it sounds like it might be more widely spread than, looking at, spy stuff in embassies. But nowadays we are bombarded constantly. When I was young, it was kind of like, there's an occasional microwave or an occasional radar thing or something like that. I worked in that field when I was in the military, but it was for military purposes. But nowadays, you got GPS satellite tracking stuff. You've got cellular service that's out there. And I guess I'm very interested to see, not just, commercial radio waves and everything else like that. Wi-Fi. There's just, it's almost unending what we seem to have radiating on us constantly. And I'm wondering if Dr. Ber has got some concept. Are they emanating from satellite towers? Are they coming from are they from cell towers? Or are they something that is in your Wi-Fi in your home? What have they got anything that they're tying this back to that you might say, oh, if I eliminated this or if I did that, I might be a little less susceptible to having some kind of challenges like this? Because the people in Havana that went through this, I understand, it was not just disorienting, it was almost debilitating. And these people had some real, maybe they're even existing clear to this day, years after being taken out of that environment. So maybe Dr. Ber can address some of that stuff, because we are in an electromagnetic force field constantly. We're saturated, and maybe it's coming from everything. I don't know. What do you think, Doctor?
And by the way, it's getting worse, Dr. Ber.
Well, there's no question. Every time you turn around, there's another kind of signal that's being injected into us, and it's not like, oh, if I don't have my cell phone at my head, I don't have it, or if everywhere always, constantly and unremittingly, everywhere we go, there are these radio waves that we're having injected into us, and I'm just interested to see if we've got an origin source that we're kind of even thinking about.
All right, well, let's broaden the discussion, though. We're literally talking about warfare here, Dr. Ber.
That's correct. It's if you look at the literature, Havana Syndrome is firmly placed into the realm of cognitive warfare. We know forms of cognitive warfare when you are fed information that shapes your specific opinion. This is cognitive warfare where the energy actually interacts with your brain tissue. So it's a direct attack on your brain. And I share your concerns about Wi-Fi and all the electricity and electromagnetic fields that we're bathing in. The difference between Havana Syndrome is because it's intentional and it's pulsed. So your regular Wi-Fi is pretty much a certain frequency, we know what frequency is, 2.4 to 2.7 gigabytes, but it's a continuous feed of energy. The type of energy that causes Havana Syndrome is pulsed, and these pulses are extremely short, literally nanoseconds, and they entrain the brain tissue, and they induce this so-called not thermoelastic, thermoelastic effect. The tissue spreads and collapses, but it's so short that it doesn't really increase the temperature, but it creates these waves inside the brain, and they're extremely damaging to your vestibular organs, and they constitute a form of traumatic brain injury.
And that's part of the problem is it's not a steady stream you can get a handle on. It's boom, boom, boom. It's these pulses that kind of generate this thing. Now, how do they target specific individuals with this? How do you and I sit in a room, and it doesn't affect me, but it does affect you? How do they lock it onto a specific individual, number one? Number two, does it have to be line of sight? Or, in other words, what kind of proximity are we talking about? I don't understand how we can't really discover this, except for governments are covering it up at all levels. Other than that, it seems like you could discover the origins and the details of this if we really worked on it, right?
Okay. So let's talk about the origin. So there's a consensus of what kind of energy causes this condition. Now, if there's energy, there should be emitters. And these emitters are generally called directed energy weapons. The ones that create these pulses of energy are called pulsed HPM weapons, or HPM devices. HPM stands for high power microwave. So in order to create this bursts of energy and direct it at somebody, you have to use this emitting device. And physics is beyond my expertise, but I can refer you to the targetadjusted.com and the works of physicist Richard Lighthouse, who basically explained to us that these pulses are coming from low orbiting satellites, and it is operated from the Schriever base in Colorado, and I have a personal anecdote to kind of support it. So I traveled to the National Radio Frequency Quiet Zone in West Virginia, where the radio telescopes, they don't emit anything; they just collect information from deep space. Those signals. They collect.
They just watch and listen, right?
They watch and listen. They don't emit anything. But in order for them to function properly, this radio frequency free zone was created, and there's literally radio frequency police driving around. Not only there's no Wi-Fi, no cell towers, nothing like that. Even cars with regular ignition are not allowed because this is a spark. This is an electromagnetic signal. So I walked 3 miles to that very restricted zone next to the largest radio telescope, and I was attacked. So it's not coming from cell towers.
Hold on, let's be clear then.
Yeah.
So when you say you were attacked, then we think this is supposed to be a prevention from signals coming in zone. It's almost like you were in a Faraday cage, right?
You're not in a Faraday cage, but they don't allow.
It's not identical. I'm just saying that the idea is similar in that, hey, things can't get in, right? At least supposedly.
It's a stretch, but for people to understand that you're in a radio frequency free zone, and I got attacked, and I spoke to Richard Lighthouse. We discussed all these things. He's actually one of the founders of Target Justice, a nonprofit organization. And it's definitely the only logical conclusion is that it's coming from the satellites. And the Space Force operates this pulsed HPM devices or weapons. And there's actually history to it. There's a congressional act of 2016 that, let me read you what it says. It is an act of acquisition of directed energy weapon systems of 2016. So 10 years ago, this act was ran through the Senate and the House, which gives us a definition of directed energy weapon system. It means military action using highly focused beam of energy to incapacitate, damage, or destroy enemy equipment, facilities, or personnel. So that tells you that the United States government possesses these weapons, these emitters, in the form of systems, which mean distributed sensors, distributed weapons, It's not just a single ray gun or whatever. It attacks and incapacitate damage personnel. That's humans, that's civilians, that's soldiers.
Now,
But
ladies and
these are
gentlemen,
human
hold
beings.
that
Yeah.
knowledge set of 2016 put before Congress. So the military's been at it for a long time. Then they put it before Congress in 2016, providing a definition and some of the details. But listen to this contrasting reality. In 2023, the intelligence community had a report involving 7 agencies. They conclude that it was very unlikely that a foreign adversary was behind these instances. They're muddying the waters intentionally, Doctor.
That's correct. These intelligence community reports, even their methodology is flawed. And if you're familiar with Rick Crawford, he issued a report from the House Committee on Intelligence, specifically talking about CIA meddling into the investigation and clinical research of Havana Syndrome. What is I'll just lost my track of thoughts. We were talking about. Please give me a line.
We're talking about basically how this on one hand the government denies it, says hey it's not foreign adversaries. On the other hand they say we don't know what causes it. On the other hand they had this report saying it wasn't foreign generated. Well, that's what they said about the COVID too. Turns out they were kind of misleading the American people on this. Then they say hey we've got this technology. They put it before Congress that they have it. So something isn't adding up, Doctor, is the point.
So I just remember my point. The intelligence community assessments, they all have limited scope. And the scope is limited by who we are looking at as the attribution of these attacks. So there's a mechanism attribution that has been done by the scientists, and they say this kind of energy. Now, the intelligence community is looking for these emitters, but they are limiting the scope to foreign adversary only. And that's the main flaw in these reports. You have to look at all the potential sources. You can't just say, well, we're just not going to look at the sources that United States possess because, we don't want to be called unpatriotic. That's scientifically, it's a failure. And then when they do that assessment, they have 7 agencies and they create a median of their response. It's just like an average. But in the feasibility of building these emitters, in the most recent intelligence community assessment report, there were 2 agencies that changed their changed their opinion. So if you have even to likely if there's a foreign adversary that built these emitters, but they still take the average. So methodologically, these intelligence community assessments are flawed, and Representative Rick Crawford pointed out in his report, and he pointed fingers at CIA.
Others are pointing the fingers at Russia. It's a very interesting phenomenon. On one hand, they claim they really don't know what causes it. On the other hand, they've been researching it. It's been around since the 50s. They've been researching it at the least for almost a decade, ladies and gentlemen. On one hand, they claim they don't know what's going on. On the other hand, it gets very interesting fast. We're going to dig in more because this is warfare, not just a weird phenomena. Dr. Len Ber with us, ladies and gentlemen. He's an MD, and he says, thank you for aligning with me on my concerns. He says, subscribe to my Homo Interruptus. It's a website, or his blog, lenbermd.substack.com. Also check out targetedjustice.com. Back in section with Dr. Scott Bradley and Dr. Len Ber on your radio.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. First came France, then it was Britain and Canada, now it's Australia.
Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese heard there on the BBC. His remarks come as Israel's leader speaks out about the ongoing war in Gaza.
At a news conference Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended a military expansion in Gaza, saying Israel has no choice but to finish the job and complete the defeat of Hamas.
Our goal is not to occupy Gaza. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists.
That report from correspondent Donna Warder. Pressing his focus on cleaning up Washington, D.C. and further reducing the capital city's crime rate, President Trump staging what he calls a press conference on crime and beautification.
The crime is ridiculous.
On Thursday, the president directed an increased federal law enforcement presence.
You're going to be safe walking down streets. You're not going to get mugged.
On True Social Sunday, the president criticized the district as full of tense squalor, filth, and crime, and seems to have been set off by the attempted carjacking and beating of Edward Korestein, a 19-year-old former Doge technology staffer now working for the Social Security Administration. Police caught and arrested two 15-year-olds as the crime was happening and said they were looking for a group of others. And over the weekend, FBI agents in flak jackets were seen patrolling the lively U Street corridor. Jennifer King, Washington.
Flash flooding canceled the final day of the Wisconsin State Fair yesterday as continued heavy rainfall in half a dozen Midwest states led to water rescues, power outages, and roads were closed. Investigators working to determine the cause of the Sunday house fire. It killed 4 children and 2 adults in Waldorf, Maryland. Watching Wall Street, the Dow 13 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. You work hard, you build wisely, your home has become one of your greatest assets. If you're staying put this summer, this might be the perfect time to put that equity to work. Whether it's funding a second home, helping your kids get their start, or simply creating more margin in your financial life, Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans are the only ones I trust to guide you through it. They've done loans for my family. They tailor every loan to fit your goals. Fellowship is a direct lender and operates with your best interest in mind. If you're looking to access your equity through a refi or exploring a HELOC for some cash this summer for a second property or maybe tackle those updates you've been putting off, start with people you trust, people I trust. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, we're learning this morning about a phenomenon, Havana Syndrome. It's been dubbed, but it sounds like it's much more widely spread than that. With Dr. Ber, who is very much involved with this issue and suffers himself from, the imposition of these kinds of things. And there's a plethora of questions and issues that just run through my mind rampantly, if you will. He mentioned earlier, just before the break, that low Earth orbit satellites could potentially be involved in this thing, and without making any accusations, you think about Elon Musk's satellite system that he's ringing the Earth with. I mean, there's almost no place that doesn't have a satellite over it all the time. Low Earth orbits come across the sky and they hand off the signal to the next satellite that's between them. They're not geostationary. They're not so high that they're over one spot, but these things are constantly moving. I mean, and it runs through my mind this concept of could there be basically terrestrial stations that are relaying this information, like cell towers or something like that. And then there's always the idea of how do we become more susceptible? I mean, could it possibly be that some of the Bravo Sierra that's being injected into our bodies at great stress and pressure from the establishment might make us more susceptible? I mean, Dr. Ber, am I just, is it like a sci-fi Twilight Zone kind of thing in my mind, or are any of these things something we ought to be talking in more depth?
We definitely should be talking in more depth, and the urgency of this issue is so overlooked. The Havana Syndrome, or anomalous health incidents, is a public health threat. It is. I'm not just saying it because I maintain registry for diagnosed civilian patients of Havana Syndrome. Dr. Giordano, if you know his name, Professor James Giordano is the leading expert on neuroweapons, and he confirms this concern. So what my goal as a physician and as somebody who is diagnosed and with verified diagnosis, my ultimate goal is to make the U.S. government to recognize it, specifically the CDC, because this is a novel public health. They should be tracking it. And because they're not tracking it, in 2023, I created a civilian registry for diagnosed Havana Syndrome patients. And, excuse me, and in January of this year, I issued the first report. And it's a red flag, and it's also the fact that the CDC is not tracking it means it's not been investigated. We still don't know what kind of emitters, where they're from, who emits this energy, and in the human toll of this is absolutely overlooked. Allow me to read a letter from my physician to the insurance company justifying my disability. It'll take just a few seconds. The patient listed above is under my care. He is medically disabled from any occupation due to acquired neurosensory dysfunction related to directed energy attacks. The acquired neurosensory dysfunction, in the beginning, that was the umbrella. Now we know it as a traumatic brain injury. More specifically, his condition causes an inability to plan activity or engage in activity for any duration, as directed energy attacks can occur without notice. These attacks are debilitating and cause significant residual deficits, both in the immediate recovery and the long-term impact. Patient experiences severe pain and vertigo that are specifically disabled on a daily basis, as well as other symptoms. He cannot perform work of any kind for any duration with any regularity, signed by my primary care physician. So imagine that all of a sudden you have a successful career, you're a civilian in the United States. You think you're protected, and then out of the blue, you start receiving these attacks. And because there's no awareness, nobody knows what it is, and the doctors are not aware of what it is. Unless you are specifically very carefully looking into this issue, like I did, I basically followed the scientific method and excluded all the various possible causation, and I arrived to this diagnosis. But a lot of people can't. So this is the role of the CDC as our health agency. Its function is directly collecting information on public health threats.
In other words, what we're saying is, hey, they're completely derelict in their duty. This has been going on for more than a decade in the public sphere. Congress certainly knows about it. And so the bottom line is we need to get support for targeted individuals. What they've got is a rally planned for September, which we'll get into a little later in the show. But for now, I want to understand then. So how do they get your number? How do they get my number, somebody's number, first of all? And then secondly, how do they direct the attacks towards an individual? And third, is there anywhere you can go where the attacks can't happen?
Well, unfortunately, no. And people tried everything. People tried to go underground. They still experience the attacks. They went to the Amazon rainforest. There's basically nowhere on the planet, except for maybe Antarctica, that where no attacks have been reported thus far. And we don't know what the significance of it is. We just know that civilians, not just the diplomats, as the government narrative says, but the regular civilians are suffering from these debilitating attacks, including children. We have a teenager who was diagnosed in the registry.
All right, so you can't go somewhere to prevent it. It's everywhere, so it doesn't need to be line of sight or anything like that. How do they get your number or my number? How do they target a specific person? Do we know that yet?
Well, we don't know the reason for targeting, so we can...
No, but how do they target a specific individual, though? Do we know that?
Do they have a certain frequency that they're using on you that would be different on me?
Yeah, so there are three leading hypotheses in this realm. So the first one is something called brain fingerprint. It's a special, it's a low voltage electromagnetic field that every individual has, and it's highly personalized. And so if you imagine that the Earth is an open fMRI machine with highly specific sensors existing somewhere, and they can pinpoint, because the ionosphere is basically it serves as a humongous looking glass, and they can find you by this brain fingerprint. Of course, they have to measure it first, and this is we don't know how it's been done. The second theory is that our presence is constantly known because we are surrounded by Wi-Fi sensors. And it's been shown that Wi-Fi sensors can show where the person is located, where the head is located. It's a known technology.
Yeah, it's a digital equivalent of a heat signature almost, right?
Not quite, but approximately, yes. This is it.
Remember, this is kitchen table discussion, right? This is going to help people understand. So I get that my analogies aren't identical, but hopefully they'll help people kind of understand how they're being located. Dr. Bradley?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say perhaps it could be analogous to where I have a discrete cell phone that's got a hold pulse, if you will, that's saying constantly, I'm over here to the cell towers. If you're going to send me a signal, it's here. And so it's a discrete to my telephone number, and perhaps you're saying that your brain fingerprint, if you will, has a discrete frequency, if you will, that somebody could say somehow this has been transmitted, it's been received somewhere, and they're now targeting that. Is that somewhat analogous?
Somewhat. It's we really don't know. This is why we need.
Yeah, everybody's brain's got a MAC address, if you will.
Well, actually, yes. I conducted a study looking at MAC addresses, and I published in academia. It's been widely looked at, and I actually consistently emit MAC address, which means I have technology in my body, because even though our bodies emit low voltage electromagnetic fields, they're not digitally arranged. So MAC address is a digitally formatted signal that cannot come from biology. It can only come from technology.
Go ahead and skip the break.
Okay,
so now we talk about, have they put nanotechnology in all of us that allows them to connect this in a unique way? Is this man-made, or is this tapping into the human genome? Go ahead and skip the break. What kind of triggers this then? Do they have to have something inside you to get this started?
Yeah, definitely. We know that nanotechnology exists, that WBAN, BAN, it's a wireless body area network, exists using this technology. It doesn't have to be inserted into your brain. It can be minimally inserted using minimally I'm sorry, I'm losing my word. Minimally invasive techniques. So injection, intravenous injection, even inhalation, transdermal application. This is where the expertise of Professor Giordano really comes in, because he talks about all this method, and he talks about NCUBE program that DARPA is still working on, and it's a public information. You can look it up. They have not completed it, but the basis of it is that we're going to put minimally we're going to put these biosensors and biorouters and nanorouters in brain to communicate, to create BCI, brain computer interface, or sometimes even brain cloud interface. And this is a working bidirectional network that in the DARPA project, it's supposed to augment the performance of the soldiers.
All right,
but
so let's ask some questions here then. So if they put something in your body which allows them then to communicate via this unknown method, target individuals based on your unique signature, however that's being done, can be set aside for this quick second. Can they just make your life hell, or can they actually control what you think and what you actually do, Doctor?
Well, the mind control aspect of it is known. It is. I have to refer to you to James Giordano, because he openly speaks it. He said bidirectional. It means reading or writing information into your brain. That's nothing less than mind control. How a person can feel it, it's not really. When people talk about taking control over brain, they always think about roboticized humans or zombie-looking people. Not necessarily, but you can modify these people's behavior. For example, with these incapacitating attacks, and some of these attacks are torturously painful. I mean, this. It is beyond any tolerability, and you think you're just gonna lose it. You're on the floor in the fetal position, screaming uncontrollably. This is how incapacitating it is. So, for example, if you are about to do some kind of activity that your, big brother or whoever is conducting this experiment, they don't want you to do, they send you an attack, and you're prevented from doing this function. That's
so
control.
They can't really control what you do, but they can make it so painful or so difficult or so disruptive, if you will, that, hey, you may not be able to carry out what you want to, but they don't have specific mind control like, hey, become a Manchurian candidate. They can't go that far. But they can, if they can read and write to the brain, they can change memories, right?
Yeah, that has been shown. We can talk about it. And the major problem is if you are under mind control, you think that these thoughts are yours. There's no way for you to distinguish between the external and internal thoughts or concepts or ideas. You think it's your own idea. And so this is why we always recommend people take a cognitive, emotional, and moral inventory of yourself. Like literally write down what your beliefs are. So later when people say, oh, well, you're changing, you can go back and see this is what I were before my attack. It's like, it's visualizing and putting it in writing like a diary, but it's you can make it more formal.
I understand. Okay, we're running out of time faster than I want to. This needs to be like a 5-hour interview. But how about RFK Jr.? Is he willing to dig into this for us?
Well, I haven't heard from him. I've been trying to contact him. I sent copies of the civilian registry report to every congressman, elected official, RFK, CDC, NIH. I mean, it's just a constant bombardment, and nobody wants to touch this subject because the government narrative is that civilians are not affected, so therefore we're not going to look into it. And the second narrative that is widely suppressed is that Havana Syndrome is a form of traumatic brain injury. We have Department of Labor bulletin that says we need to recognize these AHIs as traumatic brain injury. And people don't understand, and some neurologists don't understand, that traumatic brain injury can occur without a concussion, without impact. It's so-called non-impact traumatic brain injury, where the energy is providing the damaging effect. And that is... they need to be educated, and the CDC needs to take a lead. This is their primary function. And if you're listening, and if you're concerned or you have been diagnosed with Havana Syndrome, first of all, please write to me, civilian registry at protonmail.com, and also alert your congresspeople, senators, and ask them to force CDC to start tracking and investigating these cases.
All right. Do you think that they can control multiple people at the same time? In other words, individually, yes, we've agreed. What about a crowd? What if we rally? Can they control us all at the same time? Can they make us all get in a fetal position?
Potentially, yes. All you have to do is to widen the signal. The aperture of the signal, as I've been explained, for an individual is 0.5 centimeter. That's very precise aperture. But if you open it up to feet, to meters, and basically make a signal really spread out, I don't see why not. You will need more energy for it, but it's possible.
Dr. Bradley, do you want to respond to this? This is, the fact that the government isn't willing to research this or look into this. Nothing is official until it's first been denied, Dr. Bradley.
Well, that seems to be a fact of life right now. But I find it very interesting. I mean, and I'm just pulling on strings here because it sounds like there's so many things that need to be researched. But almost universally, not quite, maybe 70% of the world's population was injected with an experimental process that happened here a few years ago, and it goes on with the requests and the effort of all sorts of agencies. So they put it almost in everybody. I'm not saying this is exactly what it is, but this was a universal experience almost for the American as well as the world. And then we have low Earth orbit satellites that are being installed in our atmosphere or just above our atmosphere. It's just really phenomenal to me that some of these things just might be related. I don't know. So it sounds like there is some need for our Congress critters to get involved, and it sounds like nobody's interested because they're saying, oh, no, this is a military situation. You don't have to worry about it as a civilian. It's a lot broader and bigger than first meets the eye. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done, it seems to me.
Dr. Ber?
Yes, I concur. We need a separate, deliberate congressional investigation. This is, we know that intelligence community only concentrates on foreign attacks, only concentrate on members of the intelligence community. The whole Havana Act is limited to federal employees only and their dependents. And not only that, the misconception about Havana Syndrome, is not only you have to have the brain injuries, the Department of State has to recognize the event where of how you received this attack. It has to be a recognizable event. So you're really at the mercy of the Department of State. And so what this investigation would do, it would lead to the acknowledgement of diagnosed civilian cases. And it will tell us, the public will realize that this is a health threat and nobody can escape it. We kind of touched upon the shielding, and we cannot escape this. And the potential reason why we cannot escape these attacks is because the nature of the energy is scalar. It's called longitudinal wave. It propagates in a different manner than your typical radio waves.
And that's why it works underground or in all these unique places, etc., right. Ladies and gentlemen. We don't have all the facts on this. The problem is when we dig in, they say we're full of conspiracy. The problem is that nobody will cooperate in terms of doubling down and getting facts, though. It's all basically classified or secret. No one has the guts to take it on, ladies and gentlemen. But we need you to be part of history right now. It's called Targeted Action 2025. The time has come, ladies and gentlemen, to rally in Washington, D.C. They've got an event happening September 5th through the 9th, 2025 in Washington, D.C. Join us in our nation's capital to rally for freedom from this weaponized government program, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know really if it's the Russians or a foreign group doing it, but if the United States literally had this information before Congress in 2016, and if no one's talking, and if it's classified, and if the government prevents any details from being released about this, even if it is a foreign power doing this, our government becomes complicit in that, Dr. Len.
I totally agree. We need to know who is doing it, why is doing it, how we can prevent it. But the main takeaway to me, if you ask me what should be the number one takeaway, it's to count these civilian cases. If we're not counted, we cannot be protected. And this is where public health begins
and this denial that it's happening to civilians is a problem as well, though, because that just muddies the water and makes people think, oh, Dr. Len or whoever else that may be attacked by this is crazy. That's completely false, and the lack of acknowledgement of this reality is part of the problem. You've got on one hand some physicians that document it, say it's really happening, it's real, here's the report on it, and then others are going, no, you're crazy, that's not true, it isn't happening.
Yeah, but
you
mostly...
can't define the word is, can you?
But mostly I'm met with silence, and that's the enemy. We really need to increase public awareness. There's a Gallup poll in 2023. About 48% of America at least heard of Havana Syndrome, and the year before it was 36. So the public awareness is growing, but it's not enough to really bring the issue to the forefront of public.
All right. Last question. We're about out of time. Is Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos is putting up his own satellites, too, to compete internet-wise with Elon Musk. Do you think Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are in on this thing, or do you think they're just unawares? Dr. Len?
Yes.
Do you think that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are aware of this with their satellite technology, or do you think they're unaware of it?
These guys are beyond my area of expertise or knowledge.
Right.
It's really tough to say.
But it's very interesting that they're putting up low orbit, satellites right while this is all going on. I'll tell you that is interesting enough. You want to learn more? Go to targetedjustice.com or go to lenbermd.substack.com. It's LENBERMD at substack.com. Dr. Bradley, thank you so much. Dr. Len Ber, thank you so much. Liberty Roundtable Live, God save our republic.